everybody to week 5 of Workshop Wednesday, which is an educational series presented by the ADLA circuit, the SCGC circuit, and the CWE indoor drumline circuits. New as a presenting sponsor of Workshop Wednesday, we have musicchunks.com. Musicchunks.com is a platform for composers and arrangers to showcase their work and everyone else to log on and learn those beats. Music Chunks features musical segments from the top designers out there right now, including several Workshop Wednesday guests, including Shane Gwaltney, Matt Jordan, Brian Dinkle, Tom Rarick, and the folks that you have on here tonight, Resonant Music Design. And there will be many, many more as time goes on. One of my favorite things about Music Chunks is that all of the musical segments have a tempo slider on there, so you can slow everything down and break it down as slow as you want. You know, some of those cadet solos that are on there, Tom Onk's beats are at about 230 beats per minute. So if you're trying to learn it right away, you know, you're going to be able to slow it down to, a more manageable tempo, like 200. So you can break it down a little bit more easily. It's also great if you like to watch lot videos and transcribe the music. The platform's going to be perfect for you because you're going to be able to hone your skills by doing the transcriptions, and then you can go and check out the segment on Music Chunks and check out your accuracy straight from the source, from the composer, as opposed to what you have to do now where you go and transcribe it, then look and hope that someone that was in the group or the composer may have transcribed it or put out the book somewhere. So you're able to really check to see how accurate you are. And so the growing library on Music Chunks features music for battery percussion, keyboard percussion, and winds. So there's a lot of content for you to really dive into. So make sure you check it out today at www.musicchunks.com and get your monthly subscription. Got a little bit of a video promo for it as well. So let me show you guys that right now.
Introducing Music Chunks, a new online hub for percussion, brass, and woodwind music. Explore and sample chunks of music written by today's master composers for wind and concert band, indoor percussion and winds, marching band, drum and bugle corps, percussion ensemble, and more. Music Chunks has content for all skill levels and gives full tempo control over audio and video play-along examples, so you can start wherever you are and learn chunks written and performed by the very best. Browse hundreds of musical selections from over 40 publishers and growing, and create your own collections to save the chunks you're interested in. Log in now and learn your favorite music, one chunk at a time.
Joining us tonight, we have Matt Hahn, Ryan Ellis, and Noah Bellamy of Resonant Music Design. Fellas, how we doing?
Good. Awesome.
Good.
Good to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, super pumped for you guys to be here and for everyone else to make it out here. Hopefully you guys are catching a little bit of a break from the election coverage. I know myself personally, I've been watching it nonstop as a government employee. It's just kind of in my blood now, but
yeah, dude. Yeah, it's nice to just get a little break for sure.
Absolutely. And always good in the COVID-19 era to see some familiar faces. Matt and I, we go way back to Rhythm X 2008. So it's awesome to see you virtually and be able to talk a little bit about band together.
Yeah, man,
so,
absolutely.
Without any further ado, if you guys just want to go ahead and give a little bit about your background, Matt, we'll get started with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Matt Hahn. I am the owner of Resonant Music Design, but I'm a marching arts designer in kind of all aspects of marching arts. I've been doing that for about 10 years now. I live in Springboro, Ohio with my wife, Sarah, my son, Micah, and my dog. And I'm the sound designer and front ensemble arranger for the Madison Scouts, as well as, you know, like I said, a bunch of other groups from all the marching arts activities. Noah and Ryan and I all were on the team together at Lebanon High School for the last 10 years or so. So we've all been working together through that project and a bunch of other projects along the way through that amount of time. So really excited to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey everybody, my name is Ryan Ellis. I'm from Lebanon, Ohio. I've been involved in the marching arts for about a decade. Started in high school, learning from Matt. Actually, that's how we met originally. And I marched with a couple different ensembles: Spirit of Atlanta, Blue Coats, the Blue Devils, and Rhythm X. And then I've been actively teaching and designing both battery music as well as drill. All throughout the area for the last couple of years. Most recently, I've joined the Madison Scouts as the caption head and the battery arranger.
Fantastic. Yeah. And you're relatively young, right? You just aged out 2018?
2017 was my age out. Yeah, I just turned 25.
Yeah, man. Crushing it. Being a caption head at a big time drum corps at that young of an age, man, that's really, really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice. Noah, how about you?
Hi, everybody. I'm Noah Bellamy, and I am primarily a visual designer. I got my start in winter drumline and with WGI. Did strike percussion years ago, back when they were in open class, actually, up until they were in world class. And one of my first jobs also was at Lebanon High School. So it's so cool that we're together. That was they took a chance on me when I was young and trying to figure all this out, and we've been together ever since. And I currently design for Infinity is I guess kind of my big group in independent world that I've been doing for the last, I don't know, 10 or so years. But I also do a number of Scholastic World groups, Broken Arrow, Center Grove, and some other groups. And then in the fall, I do the same thing in the fall. I do a lot of marching bands. I currently live in Michigan, where I design and teach at Plymouth Canton Educational Park. And I am also the visual designer with the Madison Scouts, or will be when we can do this, right? We all got together as a team and then missed the season. So we're still figuring all of this out. But I've got, I live here with my wife, and I've got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old daughter that are super great. And yeah, we're up in Michigan, and go Michigan.
Yes, coming in clutch.
But yeah, so that's my thing. It was probably about 4 or 5 years ago that I was in a position that I could be a full-time visual designer, which is, awesome that any of us can do this. It's a blessing, and it's awesome. So, and I know that's what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah. Now Noah, don't sell yourself short here, because from what I understand, you're pretty good at playing the trombone, and you may or may not have traveled with pretty extensively with some bands. Tell us a little bit about that.
That was my first life, I suppose. I went to college, and I got 2 degrees in jazz performance, and was going to be a professional musician. We moved to Florida a while ago, 2005 or 6, something like that. Yeah, I think that's about right. We moved to Florida, and it was there that I got some really good gigs. I was the trombonist with Casey and the Sunshine Band for about 8 years. And I did a tour with Barry Manilow, and I did a tour with Gloria Estefan and the Miami Sound Machine too. And it was really the kids. It was I remember the day that my oldest now was probably about 18 months old, and I was going to the airport to do some gigs, and she said she didn't want me to go, and I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yep, I decided right there.
And I was kind of dabbling in drill design at the time and teaching some groups, and that was when it was like, I need to dive fully into this so that I don't have to do this anymore, traveling. So
you had played That's the Way I Like It, a few times.
Boy, did I. In a full sequin shirt.
You got a couple of those pictures up on Facebook. It's pretty awesome to go look at.
Well, I don't know if awesome is the right word.
It's awesome. Come on.
No, it was fun. It's an amazing experience. I mean, it's, at the time I was making my living as a trombonist, which not many people could probably say. So
yeah.
And now I'm doing it as a drill writer, which not a lot of people can say. So yeah, it's been a lot of blessings.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you to the 3 of you for joining me tonight. Obviously, it's a little bit of a crowded house in here with 4 of us total. So I'm going to kind of throw out some questions out there, and whoever just wants to jump in, we can go ahead and just take it from there. So We'll go ahead and segue into the drum corps side of things. All three of you just said that you're working with the Madison Scouts. The 2020 season would have been your first season with them. Tell me a little bit about how that team came together. From what I understand, Jason Robb is the program coordinator for that. Daniel Montoya Jr. is the brass arranger. But how did you guys get involved?
Yeah, Jason really put the team together. He was hired at some point in time, at the end of the season or shortly thereafter. I can't remember exactly what, but I got a call from him. I think Noah recommended me for the job. And then I kind of brought Ryan on. I recommended Ryan for the job. So we kind of, but, it was definitely like, talked with Jason a lot, and, he kind of put the team together for sure. And with Daniel and Jennifer Seth is the color guard director and designer. So,
yeah, I just want to, the thing that I think was so special about this and what is making this so much fun is that Jason, I think Jason's number one goal when putting a team together was to find people that work really, really well together, and that trumps everything else, So him and Daniel have a very close relationship and always, and have for a long time. Daniel and I have worked together before, dating all the way back when I was in Florida and I was at Seminole. He was doing some music stuff, and that's where we first met. So as I remember it, we were getting ready to release the team. And it was like the day before we were going to release the team, our percussion team decided to leave at Madison. And that kind of put us in a crunch where it was like, and to be honest, the percussion team was the only thing that was staying on from previous years. So it was like the one thing, it was the one part of the machine that didn't match the narrative that Jason had put together, because I hadn't worked with them and a lot of us hadn't worked with them, So it kind of created this opportunity. It's like, how do we fill out this team with the mind frame that we all must work really well together, And I said, well, we should talk to Matt and Ryan. I mean, I work with them all the time, and it's, we'll get into drum corps more, but it's like, it's just so important. I think it's so important to be surrounded by people that and you trust and that you like in this activity, because this activity is really hard. And I've been on teams where I was surrounded by people that I didn't necessarily trust a whole lot, and that I knew that if things went south, I'm probably going to get thrown under the bus or something, and it's just a tough situation to work in. So we wanted to try and create something to where we can all be free and fully creative and not have to worry about what people are saying behind our backs or dynamics,
Yeah, and it was like, we had never really worked, like, I had worked with Noah and Ryan, and Noah had worked with Daniel, but like I had known about Jason just through, I knew he was a band director and in Texas, and I knew Jennifer, but like Daniel, but like none of us had really ever worked together in like a full kind of capacity. So getting together, that we had like a design retreat like in Austin, and it was awesome. We were just like getting to know each other and like hanging out, and it was like it was immediately like, okay, there's a lot of chemistry here, like there's a lot of like, good collaboration. There's an immediate like, like sharing of ideas and feeling comfortable with each other, because we do feel like we work so well together, just like as people. So it was awesome to get together a couple of times there and really like workshop the show. Obviously, it will never or has never seen the light of day, unfortunately, but like it was definitely awesome to get together as a team for a drum corps that, coming off obviously an incredible history at Madison, and coming off some years where they obviously want to do better than what they've been doing, and so making a big change there, with getting rid of the team and coming with this new team, like it's been awesome to try to like really craft something that we're all really, really proud of, even if we didn't actually like get a chance to like display that. Like just the fact that the team coming together, working the way that we did behind the scenes, I think has been really incredible for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that also went into that process was they gave the design team all 3-year contracts, which took a lot of pressure off of us, and at that first design meeting, the core director was there, and he talked to the design team and said, you're all in for the long haul. I don't care how we place necessarily. I want you guys to come up with something incredibly creative and have no fear in anything that you're doing. And it's like, wow, There's just it was very refreshing, you know.
It was.
And it made for some really great dialogue. I can't express for anybody that's on here who maybe hasn't gone through the process of designing a show or doing anything like that. I still get a little freaked out at the early season when we're like pitching ideas, you know, like I deal with the insecurities, I deal with all this stuff where it's like it's hard for me to pitch a show because I don't want Ryan to say that it's dumb, you know. But there's one of those things that when you're in that room with people that you trust and that you know and that are friends, that fear goes away, you know. And it's a different scenario, and it really does breed, I think, the best product, or at least the most creative product, you know. And if Matt says he doesn't like this part of my idea, I totally trust him and I go, oh yeah, you're probably right, you know.
Yeah, Jason was really good about like being a facilitator throughout that too. Like he was incredible with that. Like you know, never really working with him before this, you know, I didn't really know, but like, you know, in that process, he's the perfect person for that program coordinator role, because he's great at like, you know, like really balancing everyone's ideas and trying to make sure that like it works together as a team, but like moving through things that we know maybe aren't quite like that, you know. So like it was perfect, especially that first meeting. Like he was really great person to really help all of us kind of come together and get to creating. I mean, within that first meeting, we had a lot done. We made a lot of progress in that first meeting, that first design meeting, which was awesome. So
yeah, I think it's really cool that the drum corps more and more are doing these multi-year contracts with their design teams, and hopefully some of their, you know, lead instructors as well, because, you know, as all of us know, being a part of these activities, consistency is key. And in my opinion, I think consistency really breeds success. You know, we saw on the last week's episode, we had Brian Dinkle and Scott Johnson on here, and we talked a lot about, you know, how Scott's been at the Blue Devils forever. Sure. Scott Chandler's been at the Blue Devils forever. Dave Glide's been at the Blue Devils forever. And Ryan, you experienced that firsthand as a member of the Blue Devils, you know, just seeing how that team works together and the trust that Dave and Scott have for each other and the way that they're able to build those programs. You know, that's kind of built into your guys' gig now with having that 3-year deal, as opposed to just feeling all of this pressure to 100% get it right the first time. Otherwise, you might not have that gig again next year. So it's cool to see that.
Well, and to, you know, to be a part of a creative, I always think to like WGI, I think of like Independent World or even the Scholastic groups that are super successful. Like you see the same people there all the time. Like it's, you know, Shane's at Mystique has been forever and they're great, you know, and the same thing with all of these top groups. You don't see that as much in drum corps, I don't think, you know. And then you find yourself, I think, designing a show and doing this super freeing creative thing that we're trying to do. You're doing it out of like fear, and then that totally tarnishes the product, you know, the process and the product. So if we can figure out a way, you know, the 3-year contract helps take the fear out for sure. And then the working with a close group knit of friends that we walk into the door already knowing each other and having that trust, that makes a huge difference too, you know. And
I forgot to mention Josh Wendt. Josh Wendt is on the team too.
We all know, right?
Another like our main choreographer, visual coordinator as well. And yeah, it's awesome, all of that. Like, and we also had some hand in, you know, the caption heads, like in our respective captions as well. Like Ryan is the caption head of the percussion, which is awesome. So, you know, he and I working together, and there's a front ensemble caption head as well, that we're all, you know, like we're really, really close with. And Noah was able to, you know, have a visual caption head that he and Josh have worked with. And like, so like we're able to like really have a lot of our people in that we know are going to do an incredible job. But like you said, no, like the chemistry when you walk in the door is just, it's been so important.
Yeah. And that's one of those things that I've learned as I've gotten older, you know, and the more you do this, the more ability you have to maybe say no to gigs and stuff like that, you know, and that's always so hard. But it's like the older I get, and I'm much older than the other people on this call right now, but it's like that's the greatest gift that I've earned, I guess, from being around for a while, is that I can be a little choosy with who I work with. And, you know, saying yes to a gig that you don't really want to do, or with a group of people you don't know, or a group of people you know you maybe don't work super well with, it's never worth it. You know, it's never worth it. And I had done drum corps before this. I was the drill designer at the Troopers for I don't know, 2 or 3 years maybe. And it wasn't a bad experience, but when I got out of that, I kind of said, I don't really want to do drum corps anymore. You know, like I just don't need to, I don't want to, it's not something that interests me. And then when this came about, it had nothing to do with the Madison Scouts for me. It had to do with the team. And it was like, oh, I think I will try this again. And it's been incredibly positive so far, far more than I ever thought it could be, you know?
Yeah. Ryan, what about from your perspective? Because you were at the Crossman, correct? Prior in 2019?
Yeah, well, so yeah, I was at the Crossman 2018 and 2019. I had a great experience there. The people that kind of brought me on were people I had known for a while, a lot of connections to Rhythm X. So, you know, I was teaching and working with a lot of my friends, and that experience was great. And then I got the Madison offer, which, you know, entailed being able to write music, which is obviously a passion of mine, and be able to head up the percussion team, as well as work with, you know, people I have already known, as well as some, you know, pretty exciting new faces. And I think, you know, from my perspective, there's certainly a lot of intimidation in terms of taking over a program as historic as the Madison Scouts at the age that I am. And from a design perspective, being in a room of people that are obviously older than me, not just in age, but also in experience. And when it, like Noah was alluding to, when it comes to being able to be creative and pitch ideas, I mean, a lot of these ideas, they're kind of like self-representations. They're these thoughts that you ponder on for months at a time, and you become incredibly emotionally attached to them, which makes you very vulnerable when you speak about them. And I guess one of the things for me that immediately validated that I was at the right organization was when I felt comfortable in a room full of people that, you know, I would put much above myself in terms of experience and knowledge. And I felt completely comfortable to share ideas, knowing that there was a possibility that they could be, like Noah was saying, they could be really stupid. Maybe no one would like them, but I had enough trust that everyone's hearts and minds were in the right place, that they were going to, you know, whatever their opinions were, they were going to be vetted for the right reasons. We were going to all do what was best for the group. And I really think that an environment like that is an absolute necessity to be able to create anything original at all. Because I think as soon as there's the slightest semblance of fear, that eliminates, you know, your ability to be honest about what you think with your own ideas, with other people's ideas, it immediately just it destroys any ability for creativity to prosper.
Yeah, a lot of great points there, man. For real. You know, it's awesome that, you know, they've been welcoming to you, you know, even though you are a quote unquote younger designer. You know, having judged your products that you put together, you know, a number of times now. I mean, I know, you know, you are wise well beyond your years.
I was gonna say that was definitely, like, you know, because at Lebanon, when I was, like, Noah and I were there, and the other director with me at the beginning was Jared Thomas, and he and I kind of like started the program while Ryan was in the program. Ryan was on staff when he graduated, and then Ryan took over for like when Jared decided to leave. So Ryan's been at Lebanon for a couple of years. But and like one of the first things that I realized was just like in that role, he was completely completely fit, completely ready to take on that kind of a role, and you know, not any sort of like beginners kind of like figuring it out, like, you know, like, and I think that was something that I'm sure that the rest of the team experienced as well. Like as soon as we were all in the room, like it was like, okay, like this isn't like a young guy that doesn't know anything, you know what I mean? Like he's, you know, he's prepared and ready to go, and has incredible ideas. And I think that was the other part of the Madison team that was awesome, is that like when it came to music, like everyone was throwing ideas, visual people, music people. Like it wasn't like the music people picked the music and the visual people talk about the visual things, and then like we just kind of figure out how they fit together. Like I think Josh Wendt, the choreographer, suggested our closer song, and like we replaced it, and like we used that, and like so like I think, you know, there's all sorts of collaboration from everybody, regardless of what hat you wear, like on the website, regardless of what, you know, maybe like role you play in the instructional team. Like everyone was part of the design team working together to make the best show. and then like breaking out kind of in our respective areas to kind of like help craft some of our details. And that was another like really cool part of the way the design team has been working together, even during, you know, whatever kind of COVID shutdown has been happening, like still working together in that kind of a way.
Yeah. Well, on that topic, what kind of was your guys' creative process or your workflow for putting together the 2020 program or the 2021 program, if you guys are carrying it over or creating a new product? What does that look like for you guys? Like starting from a true blank canvas where you don't have anything yet to having a finished product. What did that look like?
That's a lot to go through. I mean, I'm looking at the outline too, and I think this goes a little bit off of like the balancing of the organization with the tradition and all that stuff too. I think kind of goes into this. I mean, there was a lot of talk when we, you know, it's a corps like the Madison Scouts. I mean, the first thing when we deal with like the tradition, like we kind of talked about what we think the tradition of the drum corps is, you know, and for us, I mean, and this is a positive thing for sure. Like the tradition is, they're the drum corps that would play super loud and get people on their feet going nuts out of excellence and energy and fire and excitement. And you watch those shows that we've talked about, and it's those. That's the tradition, you know. The tradition doesn't have to be Malagueña, and the tradition doesn't have to be jazz or whatever you may think of. You know, the tradition can be a lot more open to that. And if you approach the tradition like that, the tradition is excellence, the tradition is excitement, then that opens up doors that we can do really whatever we want, as long as it is rooted in excitement, crowd pleasing. You know, those are all things that we talked a lot about, you know. And we also talked a lot about, I don't know, how maybe they were a little wayward from that in the 2 or 3, 4 years before we got there. Not in a negative, you know, not that they were bad, but it maybe got away from that a little bit. So how do we, the main thing that we dealt with this year was how do we please the alumni? How do we get that identity back, but also walk the new people, the audience, the alumni, whatever, into a new era as well? You know, how do we appease both of those things, both those sides, which is tricky, you know.
When you were already dealing with the challenge of establishing a new identity, allowing females into the corps as well.
Absolutely. And that was something that was so cool to be a part of, I think, and seeing that in camps and being part of that historical moment for the drum corps, you know. And obviously you're going to deal with people who think that we shouldn't do that, and the resounding majority think that we should, and we should. I mean, we should have. It was
most everyone was in favor of that, like from the alumni and everything that we heard from, like, I know what the thoughts are about that kind of thing, that, like, you know, that alumni base is like, you know, like older and like, you know, not in touch, but like they were primarily, like they were mostly very, very like excited and, you know, excited to welcome you know, new people into what the Madison Scouts family was. So which is reassuring and awesome to see at camps and things like that. So
well, and all of those things that we talked about that I listed that are traditions of the drum corps, none of them had anything to do with gender, you know. So there's no reason to even bring that into the conversation, really, you know. So
the performers are just who they are.
For sure, absolutely. And that so that was important to us, is we did want to bring back some sort of identity, but we also wanted to move that identity into a place that, looking forward to 2021 and beyond, we're really open to do anything we want to do, you know.
Yeah. So in true Daniel Montoya fashion, it's going to be like Da Baby or Kanye West mixed with Malagueña.
Well, we announced our artist list, and I don't know that we're going to tell you any of the tunes or anything like that, but like we had Billie Eilish on there as like we're just trying to find ways to, you know, to make sure that you know, we're understanding the traditions of the drum corps, like Noah was saying, but like also, you know, trying to push things that are new and see some new cool things out on the field. And I think that, you know, any of those top corps that retain an identity, you know, they have the mix of the things that are the essence of the drum corps, that are the things that, you know, everybody that knows that drum corps for when, you know, they marched in the 70s to last year, like they totally know what that drum corps is about. And so like trying to retain, like Madison has a ton of that, like a rich history of that with music and with, you know, like Noah said, energy and excitement that the crowd gives them. And so like, I think trying to just like balance that with something that we were all going to be really excited about doing that was fresh and new and you know, interesting. You know, I mean, Daniel's music is always that kind of like very exciting, pushing that kind of energy. And you know, like with his work with it was the Guardians, right? Like doing you know, Kanye and all this kind of like awesome, cool, hip stuff. Like, you know, bringing that essence and that flavor to, you know, Madison was you know, is shaping up to be really, really cool. So just trying to balance those things has been the beginning of our creative process, trying to figure out like what, you know, not even necessarily like, oh, this is our concept, like, you know, how, you know, what do we do about this? And then kind of letting it kind of grow from there.
I think a lot of it too is like, we talked about this a lot, that it's, you know, we can't forget that at the end of the day, we are entertainers, you know, like the kids are entertaining an audience. And I think sometimes we as designers forget this because we don't ever buy a ticket anymore. But like, it's really expensive to go to a drum corps show. Like it's really expensive to see any drum corps show in person for the average person. And at the end of the day, like, we can't take ourselves so seriously that it becomes this some form of high art or something. We want to entertain the audience who has paid money to sit in a chair and give up an evening to come see this. And that goes back to that tradition. I mean, like, I think of entertainment when I think of the Madison Scouts, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Through quality, through music, through the musical choices, through all of that. And I think that sometimes we get wrapped up in the activity so much that we think that we have to produce something that is this. And we really wanted to get back to the roots of like, how do we connect with people? You know, how do we get people to just be overwhelmed with the emotion and the fun and the music to where they're singing it and they go download a Billie Eilish album because the Madison Scouts did it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of my favorite times of the year when we have a drum corps season is, you know, looking at everybody's rep list on those little one sheets that we get for every corps, and it has the rep that you guys are playing. And I just make a Spotify playlist of it and just listen to it pretty much all day. It's a pretty sick habit of mine.
No, it's a good habit.
But just like learning all sorts of new material, you know, talking to Matt Jordan on here, you know, Matt finds all of this like brand new stuff that I've never heard of before. And it's just like a playlist of 7 or 8 tunes where it's like, all right, now I've heard this tune by this one composer. Now I'm going to go to their Spotify page and listen to everything they've ever done. And it's just a really neat way for me personally and anybody else that subscribes to the playlist to be able to find just a complete new world of music. Now, obviously there's your drum corps mainstays that people do, you know, year after year after year. I mean, Rite of Spring is pretty much always on there from somebody, but there's a lot of, you know, really great new stuff in there as well. So it's really cool to see you guys, you know, trying to take that concept of, you know, innovation and entertainment that the Madison Scouts are known for, but doing the 2021 version of that.
Yeah.
Cool. So taking it back, you know, functionally, how did that workflow work? What was that process like? Did Jason kind of come to you guys with some show themed ideas? I know you said you got into a room together and pitched different ideas for music, you know, visual instructors coming up with ideas for, you know, music, but was it, you kind of had a show concept flushed out already and then you built it from there, or was it built off of a piece of music, or how did that work?
Yeah, I mean, we had a couple, you know, like our first, we had like maybe bi-weekly calls up to that first design meeting, or every other week or something like that, just to kind of like throw out some concepts and throw out some things. And, you know, without divulging too much of like the actual concept, because I don't know what we're allowed to divulge fully or not. But
Sure.
you know, like we started with some things, and we wanted to talk about the identity and the, you know, what we wanted out of the season. What, you know, weighing the, what we were going to do with this new kind of team, this new kind of essence that Madison was going to start to become, and that, that how that was going to evolve. So I think that was kind of the plan. And then a concept presented itself. And then we kind of and that was right before our first in-person meeting. And then at that meeting, we were listening to tunes, kind of we had a big playlist, like you said, there were 30 tunes on there. We were just kind of thrown around for ideas and things like that and moments. And I think Daniel had, we had a little bit of music at our second one to get after. But then, that first one, we just kind of started planning, kind of started just making an arc of what the show was going to turn into and how much time we were going to spend on things, and just some of our ideas throughout all of that. It was pretty organic, that meeting. Like I kind of was talking about, it was awesome because like I said, it was just a lot of collaboration, and we ended up hitting a groove in the morning that first full day that we were there, and we ended up charting most of the show out and feeling really good about it. And with anything like that, you want to let that simmer, and making final decisions in that kind of a moment, we obviously needed more to think about and things like that. But it was definitely an idea presented itself, and then we all felt like that was the right idea for this year, and we felt like we could come up with a lot of cool ways to do that. In the way that we really felt like we wanted to, and that we felt like was going to be perfect for Madison for this year.
Okay. Did you guys end up writing the entire show music wise? And then Noah, did you write drill for it?
We wrote 4 of 5 movements. I think Daniel had the closer sketched. I fully wrote 4 through the ballad. And then right around that time was when it was okay, stop. Just because things were materializing, and we didn't really know at that point, it was March, end of March is when I was done with the ballad, and it was
so that's usually ballad camp.
Yeah. And that was the thing. It was that we had a camp that had been postponed, and we were unsure about some things in the April camp, and then obviously just from there everything just started to kind of get canceled. But we just didn't know what the process was going to be from there. So but we did release for Madison this summer. They shifted into this Mad U educational kind of track, which has really been awesome. And Ryan can speak a lot about that. He's been pretty hands-on, Noah as well, both really hands-on on the educational side of that. And we ended up releasing our third movement music to that, which was really cool. Putting some tracks together for each individual, because all of the members from this year opted to, I think most of them, if not all of them, opted to join Mad U and remain in curriculum throughout. Ryan, maybe you can talk a little bit more about that, Ryan and Noah.
Yeah. So obviously we wanted to, the membership had an expectation of what their experience would be, and then all of us were kind of robbed of what that was supposed to be this summer, and wanted to make sure that they were still able to get as much out of it as they could, as much of the drum corps experience as we could possibly create. So we basically just turned all of our focus to the educational side of things. And it's been nice, I think, even for more reasons than just the educational ones, to be able to keep constant contact with all the students, to be able to ensure that when a season does eventually come around and we're all able to get back at this, that we've been keeping up with our students, being able to grow them in the culture and the pedagogy that we're trying to teach them. And it's blossomed, honestly, each week. It seems like it blossoms into something new, and there's a new branch of what it can be. And it's expanding every day into this holistic educational platform, not only for the Madison Scouts, but also for the general public.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I looked at a little bit of what you guys had put out there for Mad U, and first of all, I just want to say, whoever did the branding and all of that stuff for the the web platform, dude, they did a great job. All of that stuff really, really looked fantastic.
Yeah, we've got some awesome people on our team that do all of that stuff. We've got some really, really the photography people, and just Nick Monzi has headed up a lot of that, our educational director, and so he's been really, really instrumental in making a lot of those things pretty awesome for Mad U, and making it a real course that's not just like, hey, let's try to get some kids together, like real, like very, very organized and well thought out.
I'm doing a design course right now, like a 10-week design course. And we got a deal with Pieware where all the kids are getting Pieware for the length of the class. And it's been great. Like the kids, I've got like 35 kids in the class, and we talk about the basics of Pieware. We go through, we do assignments where we're actually writing drill to music. And then we did a whole week on just creation of production sheets. We did a whole week on just show pitches, and these kids like put together their show with music and like colors and whatever. And then we came and we had like a whole pitch session, and kids were like commenting, going, oh, that's an awesome idea. What if we did this though instead? And it was like, it's super collaborative and fun. And it's just some really neat things. And it affords the kids a look into a side of the activity they may not even know exists. You know, they don't know how their shows come together a lot of times. I
think about marching drum corps. Like, did I ever think about like, oh, I wonder what the designers were talking about at this moment, or like play. Like, I was just like, all right, here's my beats, let's learn them. You know, like.
Yeah. So the kids are getting, and then the other thought is that like, if the kids have this sort of knowledge now and this deep understanding of how the process works, then they're probably going to be far better performers too. You know, like it's just, there's something about marching drill when you know how to write drill. I mean, I certainly didn't, so I can't speak of that, but I would think that like having an understanding of like how drill works, and then you go to march it and all of a sudden it makes sense, you know?
Yeah. And think about what that does to them for those that are in music education that are going to become band directors or, you know, marching instructors in the future, how that develops them in real time before they even maybe get to those roles.
Yeah.
I mean, this sounds like something that should be offered in colleges across the country.
It's really cool. And it's been great. Daniel's teaching an arranging class, and I know the kids are like doing full fleshed out projects and stuff. And for
Ryan and I are about to start a design class too.
Yeah. For me, I've had just a complete, I think we're in week 6 right now. And all of these things are open to anybody. You know, they're not just open to the Madison students. These are now open to anybody who wants to take the class, which is cool. And I'm not sure everyone always knows that, but I'm having so much fun teaching it, because it's you know, to work with these kids and to see what they come up with. It's like, it's my favorite thing of the week when I get to open the folder and look at everyone's projects, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, that's really good. And some of it's not so good, and we talk about why it's not, and then we fix it, you know. And it's been such a great thing. And again, the driving force behind that, it was just like, sure, we want to keep the kids, you know, we want to get to a point where when we do come back as a drum corps, we're not trying to refill a drum a horn line or whatever, a drum line, you know. So that was part of it. But the other thing is, we just want these kids to have an amazing experience. And we know how hard this quarantine has been on everybody. What can we do to try and help our membership out and give them something that takes their mind off of things and gets them, I don't know, active, even though they have to stay at home? You know, that's really where it came out of. And it's blossomed into this thing that's been really great, you know, and they have all these educational benefits.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So in addition to kind of the design track things that you guys have been working on, Ryan, was there also, you know, a component of it where, you know, everyone's jumping on a drum or jumping on a pad and you're on there, you know, doing some teaching, or some folks from your staff are on there doing some teaching?
Oh yeah, there's in theory, it's every single part of what you would get out of a drum corps experience from a distance. So the students are in private lessons with the staff. They do assignments occasionally. We have, I mean, I think we're up to almost 10 weekly like master classes for different sections on everything from choreography to color guard to percussion to conflict resolution and leadership. And
leadership.
It's everything at this point. And yeah, it's really cool. I mean, and for anyone who's participated in drum corps, obviously performing is, you know, it's an experience in and of itself, but there's so much outside of that the activity also offers. And it's nice to be able to continue to provide all of those experiences to the students.
I know it's hard to, like, sometimes within the season, you know, you get into a crunch time where like you get like really concentrated on the show and like learning like physically what you need to do, like taking this, and you know, like we had always planned to have a lot of that leadership built into our season no matter what, but like now we can really make sure that there's like enough, and it's, you know, it's the full amount that needs to happen to like really grow the students in the ways that, you know, are going to be incredible for them moving forward just in life. So it's just been really cool.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm super pumped that you guys were able to put something together like that and continue the engagement of the students throughout the season. So where they had an actual experience and continue to have an experience, and it wasn't just, okay, COVID shut us down, let's just, you know, it is what it is, let's just, you know, shut it down for a year. So that's really cool to see that evolution and you guys thinking about, all right, well, we can't do this, we can't do drum corps as we would normally do it, but what can we do to impact these kids and make their lives better and help them grow as individuals? So that's really, really cool. So I commend you guys on, you know, taking that project on and really doing something that's going to make a difference in some people's lives. So let's switch gears a little bit and let's go to indoor drumline. So you guys have worked with a ton of really, really great lines. You've been a member of really, really great lines. One thing that really sticks out to me about you all is what you did at Lebanon High School. So Lebanon, you guys had been there for about 10 years or so. You joined, Matt, I think you joined the staff first, maybe with Noah. Ryan, I think you were a student there.
Yeah, Noah and I started I started in the fall of 2011, which would have been the winter of 2012. I think, Noah, that was the first year you wrote the drill there. And so we started kind of, and Jared Thomas was the director at that point. And then he and I kind of came on as the front ensemble caption head, assistant director kind of thing. You know, he and I ran the group at that point. Noah was the drill designer. And so we started there, and it was, you know, they were in semifinals the year before Scholastic A, really small program in kind of like between Dayton and Cincinnati, you know, in that just kind of like rural area, but like, you know, not so rural that, you know, like it's super far away. It's like a really nice blend of like, you know, blue collar, white collar in that area. It was an awesome place to come into, you know, like Jared kind of started, and it was a little wayward, like Ryan can probably attest to being a member there. But like that first year with Jared, Jared marched Rhythm X, he marched Bluecoats, Carolina Crown. So he's got, you know, tons of great training, and he was the perfect the perfect person to kind of come in and start like building a program from the ground up. And, you know, very patient, extremely focused on details, you know, warm, but not so like, you know, like loose with guidelines and rules and letting things go, you know, like very, very, you know, open and an awesome person to work with. I learned a lot from him. I'm pretty like type A and like very like go, and he's very like relaxed and like calm. So like he and I working together, kind of running the group, was a nice yin and yang. And I would stress him out and he would stress me out, but like we would work to make sure that things were, you know, like going pretty well. And so like, you know, when it came to like the design team, like Noah talked about earlier, this was kind of one of his first high school gigs. This was my first like writing opportunity that I had that I took, and we were all kind of learning how to do a show, learning kind of how to like just write and teach and make sure that whatever we were doing was what was going to work best for the students in the group. And I think that was like always the goal. It still is always our goal, but like at that point, that was kind of what we attached ourselves to without a lot of experience designing a show. So, but we didn't really like have any expectations about anything. Like we had a goal to just like, hey, let's make finals. Like, let's try. Like they were in semifinals the year before. Like let's just make finals. It'll be fun. It'll be awesome if we can do that. And we ended up winning A Class the first year out, which was
that was the first year.
Yeah.
That was the Bell show, correct?
No, that was it was called Release. It was blues and like had some orange, and it was awesome. It was really in the time of the activity, there was a lot of just like, you'd see a lot of like groups competing in A class that really had a lot of open aesthetic, open class aesthetic, open class skill sets kind of within A class frame of a show. So like there was a lot of that, like the groups were there was a stark difference between some of those top groups. And that was really the beginning of, I think, when it really felt like, okay, this is A and this is open. And we were, I think, like, just like right in the middle, perfect, like A class in terms of like, we weren't doing anything open. We had really good performers. Ryan and the two of the other snare drummers went on to march World Class Drum Corps. Ryan the next season did. So like we had really good players, but it wasn't this like, trying to do all of these things to be pushing that A level, like, a couple of things here and there, but, pretty much it was just kind of like in that trying to max out A as much as we possibly could.
Yeah, I love that, man, that you say that. I mean, we've heard from a few people on here, Matt Hartwell talking about his approach to visual design and how he oftentimes will see so much like layered responsibility on these A-class groups, and that really affects their ability to communicate the thematic idea of the show, or just impacts their ability to perform what they're doing and just max it out. So it's awesome to see that you guys were successful utilizing that more singular responsibilities, or keeping it at a level where they were going to be able to, really max out that shaping, or make sure that the thematic ideas or the story arc was always crystal clear.
Yeah, and making sure that like there was an emotional component to the show as well. That was definitely like part of it. And we didn't necessarily like push an emotional story behind the show, but like musically, we wanted to really make sure that like the show took a journey that was, it was fulfilling, and getting some great feedback from we competed in the MIPA circuit, getting tons of great feedback from the judges there, like to help us grow and make changes and things like that was instrumental as well. So
I think also understanding what the strengths of the group were too. Like I just always thought we played well to that. Like we never had, no offense, Ryan, we never had like a battery that's going to go out and compete with the top groups in, I think, almost any of the classes that we were in. It was like we didn't have a 5-person snare line that's going to go out there and just play something that's going to make the crowd go crazy. So it forced us as a design team to figure out, how do we continue to stay competitive, and especially when we got into world class, and how do we also generate effect in an activity that is a drumline activity, and not put all of the focus on the drumline all the time. How do we create other things that are effective, that are going to be memorable and get us credit, that's not parking the snares in the middle of the floor and playing for 30 seconds and having people go crazy over it, because that's just not our bag. That's not.
Yeah, it was do a lot. It was do a lot with a little, because it's it was like a 1,200 person high school. So it's very like a pretty small high school, eventually being in world class. Yeah. Like small band, the boosters in the program and the parent support in that program were fantastic. Like we got so much support from them. Just, I think, seeing how much we put into the program ourselves allowed them to be like 100% invested in what we were doing. We always had great turnout, and it was, it's a small program, and we were kind of at the point where like our fall drum line was our winter drum line. We wouldn't really like have a lot of, aside from adding some horn players that were really talented, but like, we wouldn't really like, we didn't have this like 7-person snare line that we were able to cut down to 3 or 4. Like it was, if there's 4 in the fall, there's 4 in the winter. If there's 3, like we kind of had to work with small band numbers. And even with that small band, like our drum line was pretty big in the marching band. So
were you having to use wind players in the front ensemble as well?
Yeah. And like wind players in the front ensemble in the winter, a lot of times, people that run groups know that like some of those wind players are some of your best musicians, because they have so much talent with just music in general, and they're so eager to learn how to do things. Like we were blessed to have a nice order of percussionists, where like we would have a couple of seniors and they graduate, and then we'd have a couple of juniors, and we're always pretty balanced, but like we always had cymbals and bass drums and front ensemble. We always had wind players, in there for sure. Just
You also had a band director that was super cool about that.
Yep. And he was awesome about that. He was very his son is so funny because his son started our second year. The first year we were at Open, we went to Open class after that when we won in A in 2012. And his son started as a 7th grader, was in it for 7, 8, 9 to 6 years, started playing Rhythm X, is in Rhythm X, and is actually playing contra at Madison. So it kind of comes full circle a little bit. And great kid. His name's Marco Ainelli. He's fantastic. But yeah, anyway, so we had a band director that was super supportive of us and what we did, and really wanted to just make sure that they had an opportunity to be the best that they could be. So yeah, really blessed to have that in the program. So that after that year, we were in Open for 3 years. We were in finals. We were in finals every year, which was awesome and really exciting for the students. So that third year we were in Open was 2015, and that was we won Open that year with the Bell show.
Okay,
it was called Let It Ring.
Got it. Yeah, that was a fabulous show. That's the first Lebanon show that I really remember is that one, and being able to watch it on that Saturday morning was really, really, really neat.
Yeah, that was a special season because we compete in MIPA, and we don't see a ton of groups. There was one group that was with us that year, and it was just kind of hard to gauge, and it helped the students keep the perspective of not focusing on the scores, not focusing on where we fit within the ranking of this and that, and just because we didn't really get a chance to see anybody. So prelims night, we scored a 96 or whatever. It was clearly in first place. It was insane, and we were also really lucky to be able to rehearse during the school day, which is crazy. We came back and they were just ready to rehearse. It was just they were just so focused on just making the show better. They didn't really care about the numbers or were worried about any of that. It was a very every once in a while you get some of those seasons where it's just it feels just 100% special, and that was one of those where it was just really, really special to be a part of that and be around for that, and not really necessarily worry about the scores because we just weren't really focused on that, which was awesome.
Yeah. And then did you immediately move to World the next year?
We did. We didn't really graduate anybody. We didn't really have any, we had a couple of seniors. And so we had decided actually before WGI, as the design team, we were feeling like we really wanted to push them in more skill sets, and we necessarily we didn't maybe feel like we were being rewarded in the way that we felt like we should have been, or at least in a way that we could have been. So we were maybe World Class is where we're at and where they can handle it. And we decided before that to move up, to decide to go to World the next year. And we told them right after the season was over that we were going to do that, which was awesome. So
what show was that?
The World show, Point Counterpoint. Point Counterpoint was our first World show. That was awesome. It was a lot of fun. It was just, trying to maintain our identity throughout that process was really hard. One of that first year in Open, when Jared and I, it was our first, we had only had one year of experience at that point, and we won. It was okay, well, what are we gonna do? And we thought Open Class, well, let's write everything way harder. We got to write it way harder. And oh, well, now we have 6 minutes. We got to write or 7 minutes. We got to write way longer. Learned a lot of things in that year. Hey, don't do all those things.
Yeah.
It's still all about what your students can handle it. And Ryan, that was your senior year. That was a lot of show that year. So
what was that?
Control, yeah. That
was a good one too.
Yeah, and we made finals. Every year we made finals, which was awesome. But it was definitely one of those okay, reflecting on that year to the next year was okay, we've got our bearings a little bit. We definitely know that we maybe don't need to we don't need to overdo it when it comes to open class. Like that's not this like, oh wow, it's this whole like incredible, like we just have to make sure that we do what's going to be best for them, and
Yeah.
they will succeed. So
Yeah. So one thing that I see a lot as a judge and as a circuit administrator is I see groups that will be successful in A class for a long time, and they have the skill set to be able to move up into an open class and then eventually continue to develop and maybe get into world. But for whatever reason, they're a little bit apprehensive to maybe make that jump. You guys obviously made that jump pretty quickly compared to what maybe a lot of groups do, or maybe not. Maybe some groups move up pretty quickly. But what was kind of your thought process behind doing those jumps, and how did you kind of manage your own personal expectations, like of yourself as a designer or of your students in those first years to, make that jump or have the courage to make that jump?
yeah, it was definitely about what is, what is going to be what's best for the students, and like from that first year, like the year we won A to open, like it was mostly the same group. So we were thinking like, if we're in A again, we just won, like are they going, like are we going to be able to hold their momentum like we did the year before? They hadn't seen any success before, really. Like they've been semifinals, but like, and our training was evolving too. That was the second year, really the third year of Jared being there, and the second year of me being there. So like the training was really taking hold, and that was really always the fundamental part of the program, was like just world-class training, trying to like taking, even if they're in A class, like holding them to world-class standards, not in terms of skill sets, but like in terms of rehearsal etiquette and the way that they approach practicing, and just those kinds of things that build a program that like probably didn't exist there before, like practice habits and private lessons, and the expectation that those are the things that you should be doing. And we were blessed to be able to be in an area that, Rhythm X right up the road, there's lots and lots of talent that usually moves there.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if it's just for a year, for a lot, or they move there permanently to just be in that area. So we always had, the best teachers, I think, the best staff in front of the students, to be able to teach them, even if it was one day a week with subsectional staff, like still able to really give them everything that they needed to, to build that foundation, so that whatever we decided to do with them concept wise, we knew they would be able to handle it. And we were also always trying to weigh, whether like if we took a chance on something, we made something, we tried to do something really hard, like, okay, is this going to work? Like, do we need to change this? Talking with Noah a lot, like sending Noah videos. Noah were you still in Florida at that point, or were you in Michigan yet?
Florida when I first started.
And we had you in at least once a year. Like once we would fly you up, and then you would come in WGI week because you were in town. But like just trying to like get an outsider's perspective, like, hey, does this work? Does that work? Do we need to change this? Like, hey, this doesn't work. Okay, we'll change it this today. And just always trying to make sure that like that show really fit them. And like I said, we learned a lot that first year, just trying to not overdo things.
Yeah.
I think the development through the classes for us too, like it mirrored our own development too as designers. Like, I mean, it was like, I think that drove a lot of that too. It's like,
Yep.
As we felt more comfortable and felt like we were getting better, we wanted to push ourselves as well. I mean, not at the detriment of the kids by any means, but it was like we were also growing as designers and going through adolescence and becoming better. And like, it's just that was a big part of that as well. Cause I mean, I even remember sending drill to, this was before, like, this is when you had to manipulate Pieware to write indoor drill a little bit, to where the step sizes weren't accurate. So like you would write things, but you knew that indoor on a 6-foot grid, which is what we use, like it's different than, so you couldn't use the step size. And I remember for the control show, sending you like drill for the opener, and all the step sizes were at like a 32 to 5 size step, because I totally botched the thing.
Yeah.
And I still didn't know what was going
Yeah.
on, and it's like, we had just won A class, and I'm still like, oh, I don't really know what
Yeah.
I'm doing. Like, oh my gosh. And yeah, it's just, there was a bunch of like kind of just growing, you know.
Mhm.
And Matt, I mean, this didn't come up, but I mean, Matt and I's connection is Matt went to Centerville when I taught at Centerville, you know. So like
He was my first pit instructor.
I for some
Wow,
weird
I did
reason-
not know that.
My first year of anything marching arts related,
Yeah.
like anything,
This
was
this
the
was at a time
winter.
when Centerville had like no staff, and so Tim Fairbanks and I were like best friends, and Tim figured the best person to teach the front ensemble was a trombone player.
And write the music.
I did write the pit book a couple years too.
You did my first year. So it was like my first year. I was a freshman, 2001.
Yeah.
We were in world class. I didn't really have any idea what that meant.
I wrote a world-class pit book. That's the worst thing. That's amazing.
So he was my first pit instructor. I learned everything from him. He's the reason why I'm here.
It is, exactly. You owe me. But so this lineage, you know, like between the three of us goes back like a long way and is really deep. So it's just so neat that we have grown up through this process together, and that it is such a neat, it's just a neat experience once again to be able to do these things that we've been able to do with each other. It's great, you know.
Yeah. And Ryan, what was your experience like, you know, coming out of Lebanon as an alumnus of the group and watching the group grow as you're kind of entering in as an instructor? What did you do to kind of prepare yourself for that, or to continually evolve yourself to meet those expectations of those new classes that you guys were in?
Well, I think, I mean, Jared did an unbelievable job of making sure that everyone there, I mean, Lebanon was kind of filled to the brim with love on all sides, like from staff and students and parents. I mean, I have been in very few situations in my entire life where that many people have been willing to do any amount of work at the drop of a hat. So there was already a substantial, even from just the A class level, there was already a substantial culture of people wanting to grow and work very hard. And so, you know, obviously I got to be a part of that. And then I did do one semester of college in Columbus before I transferred back to the Cincinnati area. So I got like a small breakaway, and then I came back. And Jared was, and I was marching around the Mexican drum corps at this time and still getting more experience. Jared would allow me on occasion to just like try my hand at one small design thing. Like he would say, okay, we need 8 counts of choreography. And then I would write that, or, you know, there's a snare break right here. And so that was, you know, especially where I'm at right now, as I look back on that, I'm not sure where I would be without that opportunity, because it was, you know, he was kind of looking over my shoulder. He would correct any stupid things that I put on paper. And it was with a student body that I knew very well, at a culture I knew very well. Kind of, honestly, it's very similar to what we were just talking about with Madison, where it was a very safe, trusting, open environment. And then obviously being able to take over the director role when Jared moved away, and being able to keep a lot of that culture and move the program and in new directions. And I mean, I feel that the difference between A and open is more substantial on the design team than the membership probably. And then, but going from open to world, there is an immediate jump in the standard of the membership that is much higher than the other one. And as Noah was talking about, that was difficult. I mean, it was not until we went into world class that I truly realized the size of our program, because going up against,
like it was
a lot going up against the rest.
Yeah, it was like finals day.
Yeah. And seeing videos of, you know, Ayala in the fall, and there's like 100 snare drums and all of them are perfect. And I'm like, you're getting the best 5 of
Arcadia
these.
and
Chino
Hill.
Hill.
Yeah,
we have
insane.
a 13-year-old French horn player who's like learned traditional grip 4 weeks earlier, and we're trying to put him in, and you know, God love him. We made it work every time somehow. I mean, not that we were competitive with those giants, but I mean, we were finalists every year, and you know, it was kind of cool. It was like this bootstrap mentality, I guess, where we knew how up against it we were, and it was, you know, it was really fun.
That first world class like finals day experience for them was unbelievable. Like rolling up to the line, and like, you know, Scholastic World Finals Day is so much different than Scholastic Open Finals Day for us. Was like we had a rehearsal at school, You know, like even the year that we won, where we're going on last in our class, like we would get to the school at 6, rehearse for an hour, and then we get to the lot at 8:30 or something like cold, windy, like nobody's there watching us. You know, it's 8:30 in the morning or whatever. Like
brutal
do the show
Saturday
at
morning.
11. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's brutal. And some of those years that we were going on a little later or earlier, it was even early. It was crazy. Anyway, so like world class finals experience that next year, like in the lot for that the students was so cool. But like, you know, seeing Avon's 3 massive semis roll up, or like, you know, Chino Hills and Arcadia and Dartmouth, and then we've got these like little trailers that are pulled
Horses.
by pickup
They're
trucks.
pulled by horses.
Yeah. Yeah, basically pulled by horses. But like we've got like these 3 little trailers that are all like rusted and like super worn logos that are like, you know, it just showed like a true testament of like what working hard and like good education can do. Like it can get you to that point where, you know, it doesn't have to be about the size of your program.
And you touched upon this earlier, Matt. I mean, I think the lesson to be learned for anyone who's trying to get nuggets out of this is like, from my 10 years at Lebanon, very little changed from day one to I think the end of, or whatever, very little changed, right? The group got better, the designs maybe got better, we moved up classes, but I thought that they always rehearsed incredibly well. They always handled every rep like it was their last. Like there was that culture mind frame, even when they were in A class, it was always there, you know, and that's a testament to Jared, to Ryan, to you, Matt, like to everybody there. Like there was always a world-class mentality regardless of the class. So that when we got to the Scholastic World, it felt like it did the year before when we were in open class. Like it felt the same. We were just in a different class doing maybe a harder show, you know, I don't know.
Well, and I think that
hearing you say that, Noah, and kind of thinking about how that was possible, I think, I mean, for anyone who spent a time around like 14-year-olds and trying to get them to do anything for any quantity of time is difficult. And especially trying to get them to be at a world-class level. I mean, there's no getting around the fact that they need to be playing their instruments for an obscene amount of hours every day to even begin to get their skill sets into that echelon. And I think it's a testament to how much respect was there and like really that family atmosphere, I guess, because you know, some of it came with the history and the culture, I guess, once the program was established for long enough, but you knew that there was more going on than, you know, just you playing your instrument. There was a responsibility to be had to uphold some of those traditions and to be able to, you know, give everybody the experience they needed. Because for me, like, you know, I was doing nothing. I mean, I don't know who I would be right now if it wasn't for Into It Drumline, but I don't think it would be very good. Certainly no one would want to have me on a podcast.
You almost quit because of show choir, right?
Yeah, I was a lost child to say the least. And
the year before, Noah.
Yeah. And you know, to that testament, like Jared Thomas, I mean, Jared Thomas is like one of my best friends. He was, if it hadn't been for COVID, he would have been the officiant at my wedding. And that relationship, like the culture that it was trying to establish, and what, you know, I think was continued even after he was gone, it really got the most out of a lot of people. I mean, kids would work hard when we were asking them to work hard, and they would work even harder than that. And it was amazing to see what a 15-year-old would inspire themselves to do when they were at this program.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, cool. So Lebanon High School, man, it's awesome to see what you guys did there throughout your tenure at the school. Tell us a little bit about Resonant Music Design. If someone is looking for you guys to maybe design their show, how does that process work? I know you have a lot of different designers that are featured on the site. You know, do clients get to pick who they work with, or is it you just go to Resonant Music Design and, you know, it's kind of chosen for you? How does that work?
So Resonant Music Design is my company that I started kind of through the process of Lebanon, like Noah was talking about growing and evolving. Like that's kind of how I started growing and evolving as a designer in the activity with this, you know, this company. So the Lebanon kind of like, there's like a Lebanon, I think there's just like a framework throughout my work with like my company that I feel like is tied to, you know, the growth of that program is tied to the growth of my company, which has been, you know, really special. So if someone comes to the site, there's a place where they can request like I get custom design kind of like emails, and you can request specific designers. There's a list of a few on there, and Ryan and Noah are both on there, and that's definitely like how we'll work together on a bunch of projects throughout the year, with the website, or like other ways. Some people just email me directly. It just kind of depends. But there's also a bunch of prepackaged shows up there that I have, that are like kind of meant for programs with that are strapped in a budget, or just looking for potentially something different to do. I know some programs search around every year, and so it's definitely like an opportunity. I've got some marching band stuff, but mostly indoor drumline stuff that's up there, and indoor winds as well, breaking into that the last few years. But yeah, like that's Noah and Ryan and I have been able to work with a bunch of different programs through that, and through all of us kind of finding groups and working together, which has been really good. But for Resonant music design purposes, yeah, like if that's something that you're interested in, like going to the website resonantmusicdesign.com and going up to the designs tab, and there's like a custom design, or there's prepackaged designs that you can kind of look through and listen to and check out stuff. And there's always options to adjust stuff, and if something works better for your program. So
well, and we even had a situation last year or the year before where someone bought the Lebanon show.
They literally bought so it was I think it was our second year in World Class finals. The show was called Elevate, and this was like one of the first years that there was like a lot of flow marching streaming. And I got an email, or the band director whose son was in the group, he got an email, and it was like maybe 30 minutes after our finals performance, and it was like a school in Virginia, Orange County, and it was the band director saying like, I want to buy all of that. I want to buy the show and the uniforms and the tarp and the props. And it was like, okay, great. I want to buy the drill. Like, I want Noah to like buy the drill. So it was like, okay, great.
And then they sent us videos, and it was like
they had found a video.
They learned like the body, right?
They learned all of the body. Like they like learned the show.
Strangest thing.
It's like, whoa. I mean, it was awesome. It was like everything was like really well done too. And it was just like, whoa, like this is very, very odd, but like cool, really cool. So yeah, it was definitely, I forgot about that. That was a fun, like just, and it was really cool because we got to play it for the students the next year, and they were like, oh wow, that was like me, like dude, like it was really cool for them to get to see like another group do their show, which was really neat. So
yeah, it's always interesting for me, judging around the country and seeing companies like Resonant Music Design that sell shows to different groups around the country play the same thing, but seeing how they approach it differently to where it's like, I'm familiar with this music book, but that show is about spiders now, whereas when I saw it last week, it was about carpentry.
Right. Yeah.
And if you go to Resonant Music and you select me to be your drill designer, you get an autographed picture of in the Sunshine Band.
Ooh.
I don't even have one of those. Maybe I should hire you, Noah.
Yeah, sounds like it. Got to get on it, Matt. Awesome. Well, cool. This has been such a good discussion with you guys. Thank you for, sharing your information. Before we get out of here, one thing that I want to know is, if you were, or if someone was an upper division college student, or, a new up and coming instructor, or someone that's trying to dip their toe into the design game, what are maybe 3 do's that each of you have for those people to try to become, fantastic designers and instructors such as yourself?
Oh, I know.
All right.
You want me to go first while you guys think?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the first thing is to be patient. I think a lot of people, I don't know, and maybe this is because I did this later on in my life, but it's like I see a lot of people that like, I want to write drill because I can make money or something, and be patient with all of it. I mean, the first marching band drill gig that I got, the band gave me pieware, you know, and that was like my payment. And I thought it was the greatest thing in the world because I got a $1,000 program for free, you know, and that was amazing. And I'm so grateful for that. But I don't know, to do anything well, it takes time. To do this as a career, or to do this even as a hobby or whatever you're doing, I just be patient. I would say be diligent too, you know, study the craft. And that's, to me, that's deeper than just being a fan and watching shows, you know, like really digging in and studying the craft and figuring out what's good and what's not and why, right? We all know, like, I didn't like that show, right? We've all said that, but it's like, why didn't I like that show? You know, why did I love that show? And there's you know, there's so much of that, just studying. If this is going to be your thing, I think sometimes people go into this career because they don't want to work 9 to 5 every day, you know, and it's like, but to do this as a career, you need to work at it 9 to 5 every day. You need to spend time working at it and studying it, you know. Yeah, and I don't know, be nice to people.
Yeah.
Be super nice to, I get so much work just because I'm a nice guy and people like me on the team, you know, and it's like, that gets you work, that gets you called back, you know, that comes from the music world for me too, you know. There's so many, when I lived in Miami, Florida, I would get called for gigs all the time, and I was not the best trombone player in Miami, you know, but I showed up on time, I was nice, and people liked hanging out with me on the bandstand, so they call me back, you know. And it's the same thing in this career. Anytime you're selling yourself as a business, it's be kind, be nice, and don't miss deadlines.
Yeah. Be a good team member and like,
yeah, it's easy stuff. I think it's easy stuff, but it's a lot of people fold on a lot of that stuff, you know. And it's like, why aren't I getting work? It's like, well, you're a jerk.
Yeah. Or you miss a lot of deadlines. You were really late on stuff.
You know,
Yeah.
like you just stay on top, treat it super seriously, you know. Like this isn't a hobby. It's very fun for us, but it's not a hobby. Like once it becomes a career, treat it like a career, you know.
Yeah. Cool. Matt?
Yeah, you know, for me, I think my growth in this started out by like, I started arranging, you know, like front ensemble tunes for, I was teaching at Centerville and Rhythm X. And so like I would write some front ensemble tunes, and both groups were able to play them. So like, I really felt like I learned a lot of that even before I knew that I wanted to do this, just by arranging something, having a group play it, listening to it, and like going like, okay, well, I like that. Like this sounds terrible. This isn't going to be able to play it. Like that kind of stuff. Just like hearing a group play your material like back at you, and especially in a role that I was in where I was able to like really teach them, or like, you know, be hands-on, is awesome and humbling all at the same time, because then you learn really quickly like what sounds good and what doesn't sound good to you. And you know, you get the experience of, you know, doing that, like hearing your music played, but then you also like get the experience of being able to go back and make those revisions and those edits. That was definitely a huge thing for me. Like as I reflect back on that growth, and even in the process, just knowing that was really, really important. Yeah, I mean, what Noah said, being a great team member, like I think that's being able to, you know, you don't want to go so far out of your way that like you're doing all of these things that, you know, you're spending all of this time, but you don't have that a great balance with your other parts of your life. But, you know, you want your clients to feel like you value them too, and that they can count on you to help. You know, I mean, I make thousands of edits like at the drop of a hat, if it's, you know, if it's okay, if it works from, you know, like be able to like boom, make a sample, like hey, or like hey, the main stage file doesn't work or whatever, like okay, like I'm like on my computer, like boom boom boom, but like, so doing stuff like that is being a good team member in that way, I think is helpful. Developing your clients, you know, as I was growing my client list, there was a year that I got to a point where I took on too much, and I, you know, actually got some good advice from a dear friend, just like about managing your time and knowing when to say no to some clients. If you don't, you know, if you're not going to be able to do your best work, you know, don't don't take on that. And, you know, like people trying to get into the industry, or, you know, that's the place that you want to get to, where you're able to, like, you know, have enough to be able to turn some people down if you need to. But like, I think once you know what that is, it's really important that you stick to it, and you're not pushing yourself too much to overdo, you know, what you do just for money's sake, you know, because that, like what Noah said, that's not the point of what we do. It's a career, yes, but it's also, you know, it's so much more than that when it comes to what it means to the students that are getting your product, what it means to the director, band director, whoever is running that, you know, like being that team member, and making sure that you're giving them something that is reflective of your quality too.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Ryan?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I think that they've both hit on a lot of what I would say to be my probably biggest lessons learned from entering into this career. The first of which being just, you know, the most difficult thing is just getting your foot in the door. And I think that anyone should take, I mean, as long as it's ethical, you should probably take any opportunity that possibly comes your way. I mean, I think, like, you know, the first time I ever used Sibelius was, you know, I got to write one exercise for a battery, and I took it immediately. And then maybe I got to write a cadence, maybe I got to write a snare break, I got to write 8 counts of choreography, maybe there was 20 counts of drill, and there was all these things. And I, you know, obviously I wasn't getting a raise or anything for that. And I wasn't concerned with that, because all I wanted to do was I wanted a chance to try this out, to see if I was any good at it, if I liked it, to be able to see my product. So, you know, I would just encourage everyone, you know, I would be careful with how picky you're going to be with who you're saying no to, because opportunities, I don't think they come around super often, at least not as often as we would like. And it can be dangerous sometimes to pass up on them. So that'd be the first thing. The second thing, which both of them have said, which I think is so important, I'm just going to say it a third time, is I think that your ability to get work in this activity is more about who you are as a person than the product that you put out. And not that it's not about the product you put out. I'm not saying you should do bad work on purpose or anything, but it's a lot of time. I mean, being involved in this activity full time, it's a lot of work. You're on a lot of calls. We've already hit on the emotional side of what being creative can be, and being in a room with people that are difficult to be around is a way bigger deal than you would imagine. And you only have to rub someone the wrong way one time for them to never bring you back in the room again. So I would just be mindful with relationships, invest in them actively, be the person that people want to be around. And then I think lastly, in terms of like the specifics of designing, I felt, you know, I spent 4 years just loading up books and Spotify playlists with ideas and all these things. And because I didn't have any ensemble to use them on. And it's very easy, I think, when you first get involved, to view the ensemble as your medium for creativity, which it can be, but every idea that you ever have has to be put through the filter of the student body or the membership that you're using. I found myself in the earlier stages of my design career kind of making that an afterthought and just thinking of my idea and what I thought would be really cool. And I only ever imagined it being flawless. And then I would just put it on the membership without ever considering what their capabilities were. And it's a bigger deal than it just being dirty or something. It's stressful for the membership to be loaded up with things that are past what you've taught them to do. It's stressful to you to try to teach it. So just with whatever you're designing, the membership that you're designing it for should be an active part of the design process.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really fantastic information there. Definitely something that I think anyone that's done this as a career, has taught for a long time, has certainly found themselves. I mean, I know myself at Palmetto Percussion, we won open class and then went into world class. And like Matt was talking about a little bit earlier, we were just like, all right, let's give them all the notes. Let's have 10 snare drums. Let's have 5 marimbas and let's do it. And it was just like, looking back on it now, it's like, wow, we needed half of what was out there and we would have still been more successful. So I mean, that's really a lot of great information from you guys. You know, I've definitely learned a lot from you guys, and it's been fun to, you know, from an adjudicator standpoint, be in front of your guys' groups over the years and, you know, see how those kids have developed over time and, you know, see the work that you guys have done. It's been really, really fun to do. So before we get out of here, I know you guys have MadU, you have resonantmusicdesign.com. Do you guys have anything else that you want to plug? Where can they find MadU information, or where can they get an account or log in?
Yeah, all the MadU stuff, you can go to the Madison Scouts website. They've been pushing it pretty hard through all their social media platforms as well. So anywhere you find Madison Scout stuff, you're likely going to find MadU stuff as well.
Awesome. And then resonantmusicdesign.com. You can get a hold of all you guys on there. Anything else?
I've actually got some stuff on Music Chunks now, which is pretty awesome. So it's a awesome site that Shane Gwelney put together, and lots of other incredible artists are up there. But that was the sponsor of this podcast. But like, that's a new kind of thing that just dropped today, actually, and it's going to be really, really cool. So I've got a few things up there now, and more to come for sure. So
awesome. Noah, anything to plug?
I don't think so. Casey and the Sunshine Band.
go to the Resonant Music Design website and hire Noah and get that autographed headshot.
He probably will send it to you, honestly. If you ask for it, he'll send it.
I probably would.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day. I know it's a little bit late over there on the East Coast, so I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Mike. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get out, I want to thank ADLA, SCGC, and CWE for their continued support for the Workshop Wednesday series. And also thank you to Music Chunks as our new presenting sponsor. Workshop Wednesday will be back next week for the second to last edition. We're going to keep it on the East Coast, and we're going to be talking with Sean McElroy, Dan Shack, and Travis Peterman from George Mason University and Carolina Crown. We'll be talking a lot about similar things that we talked about tonight, just how they've grown that George Mason program, how they approach some of their more avant-garde show designs, and how they've gotten that Carolina Crown drumline to play so well the past few years. So make sure that you get on Eventbrite and reserve your ticket for that, but that will be going down next Wednesday at the same time, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. So thank you guys so much for attending, and see you guys next week.
Awesome.
Thanks, Mike.